Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Bookum Show. My name is Kyle Colley and this is a special episode of Founders Talk Podcast, a podcast for founders to tell their stories, ideas, and visions of the future. This episode is brought to you by Bookum, the book community's new and best way to host dynamic online book clubs. Download the app and start your book club today at www.bookumapp.com. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. My guest today is the masterful Felicia Pride. Felicia is the founder of Honey Chile, a media and production company that tells stories for, by, and about Black women over the age of 40. Additionally, she is an award-winning filmmaker. Some of her works include Really Love, Tender, and her TV credits include Grey's Anatomy, Queen Sugar, and she is currently a co-executive producer on the show Bel-Air. Along with her works in TV and film, Felicia is also an author of multiple books, including her brand new romance novella, Come Close. She is a writer, a producer, a leader, a creative, an educator, a podcaster, and as you can tell, a true multi-hyphenate. Felicia, welcome to the Founders Talk Podcast.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Good to hear. It's a pleasure to talk with you today. I want to kind of start. One of the things I really liked about on your podcast, you all have this thing called how we create segment. So I'm kind of curious to hear, like, are there any pieces of art, stories, film, TV this year that have really spoken to you from a creative lens, or anything that's really stuck out for you recently?
Yeah, absolutely. Sinners,
Oh,
Ryan Coogler's Sinners, the artistic ambition and then being able to see it come to life is a big deal. And then, doing a deal that includes ownership, the blackness of it, the love of Black people, the Black spiritual traditions. I was all in. It was an immersive experience is how I describe it.
I really enjoyed that film too. Just like really, because I've always been a fan of Coogler's as well. Just like from Black Panther, Fruitville Station, and all that. It's just so to
Right.
see it all come through together in a film that, like, most of the time people don't necessarily come out for like more scarier movies. I think he just the way he was in put that into storytelling was really unique to us.
Absolutely. And then I am obsessed with the Clipse album. I'm a
Oh yeah.
big Pusha T fan. And one also, they brought out their deal. I'm always like the creative in the business. They brought out their deal at Def Jam, but also to come back for Malice to come back after 15 years, like he hasn't missed a step creatively, but also to stand in his truth, his spiritual truth. I'm obsessed.
Yeah, another cool thing about that too, now that you're talking about, is like a lot of times in hip hop, there's like this ageism that kind of comes out of it. So like to see the culture to really get behind it, I know especially with all the stuff you all do and just continuing to, there's so much, yeah, age is the goal, or growing old is the goal. So like to see it that we're still appreciating talent and growth and all that through their story is really cool. And like kind of speaking of that, like what do you consider a great story? I kind of want to hear how you think about what are the elements of a great story?
I mean, there's the fan side of me, right? And then there's the technical storyteller side of me. From the fan side of me, it's really about a story that makes you feel something, right? That makes you feel something to the point that that feeling stays after you have experienced that story, right? And, if we use Sinners as an example, like that movie just stayed with you. Um, so that to me is like the core. And it's interesting because the release of my first film, Really Love, as a perfectionist, you're like, oh, we didn't have this scene, we didn't have that scene. But the bulk of people who, at least I have seen, who have shared their thoughts about the film, they don't see all that. They don't see all that you see. They just talk about how that film made them feel. And that was really eye-opening for me as a storyteller, just to remember, yes, I want to get it perfect as I can technically, but at the end of the day, I also want to make sure that people feel something because that's what they're going to remember. They're probably not going to remember the lighting situation that you that you see, or the plot hole necessarily, but they will remember how that project or that story has made them feel.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like sometimes we write these things that are so personal to us that eventually sometimes as creators we kind of hold on to it forever. But the beauty is in letting it go and letting it see an audience and letting people have their opinions and thoughts about it, and kind of engage with the art through us putting it out there, and letting them enjoy it.
Absolutely. And I think from a technical standpoint, as a storyteller, uh, you know, conflict, a protagonist who wants something, And we know why, sort of the external, internal of what they want, the things that are put in their way to make that want complicated. Those sorts of technical things are important to me from a storytelling perspective.
Wonderful. And speaking of stories, I want to shift a little bit into your novella, Come Close. It's out now.
Yes.
We'll make sure to put in the bio and talk about it. But what led you to this story and how did it come together?
Yeah, I mean, well, before I got into writing for film and TV, I wrote books.
Mhm.
Primarily, I wrote some YA fiction. One of my most popular books was actually about hip hop. It was called The Message: 100 Life Lessons from Hip Hop's Greatest Songs. And then writing books became really hard for me. Books are a lot. It's a lot of words. Like we don't talk about how many words books are. It is not just a lot of words. For me, the type of storyteller that I am, it's also a lot of prose, a lot of atmospheric that you have to add to it. I have to describe this room and describe what they're wearing to really immerse the reader in it. So when I found screenwriting, it was like, ooh, I don't have to do all that. Can have short action lines that will really suggest what this is going to look like, but I don't have to paint this whole picture in that way. And through film and TV, I was able to write romance. So really love my first feature is all, which is on Netflix, is all about, and it's a love story. It's a romantic drama. I've been able to write romance on Queen Sugar. I've been able to write romance on Bel-Air. I've been able to even write romance on Grey's Anatomy. So I was able to, and I've written a few other additional romantic screenplays. So I've been able to carve out a niche for myself in romance in the film and TV space, but never in the book space. So finally, I was like, okay, I'm ready, one, to return to books, and two, if I do return to books, I want it to be in romance. And when thinking about that, I also was like, I don't want to take on too much, so let me make it a novella to start, not a full novel. And also what feels kind of close to what I'm feeling right now. So the premise of Come Close is a film and TV writer and director. Her name is, or TV writer and director, her name is Amaya Ellis, returns to her hometown of Baltimore to shoot her first feature film. And her college sweetheart ends up being one of the stand-ins. And so they're reconnected in that way over their love of storytelling and movies and each other.
Yeah, so I'm curious when it comes to writing, especially now getting back into, writing more novel based. Do you still have that TV or film lens when you're writing, or do you kind of have to separate it as like in that creative process, like when you're going through writing the story, especially for this one?
This was really tough to write. I had to remember how to write a book. They are two different mediums. In screenplay and screenwriting, you can't write what you can't see. In writing books, you have to write what you can't see to really kind of flesh them out so that you understand what the character is feeling in the moment and all of that, because you can't see it. So those are very two different distinct skill sets. So I had to remember how to write a book. And I also had to have the stamina to do it. Because I'm like, oh, this is a lot describing where we are and describing all of that. So yeah, I kind of had to relearn the genre.
Yeah, I feel like we're always in short supply of like really great romance stories, specifically when I mean like the demographic that you are aiming at. So the more of the 40 plus target demographic. Talk to us about that when it comes to writing those type of love stories and what you're really hoping for to in getting to in this story.
Yeah, absolutely. And Maya Ellis, the lead in Come Close, is over 40, and my production company, Honey Child, is dedicated to telling stories by for about Black women 40 and over. We call them honeys. And I just feel like when I started the production company, I wasn't seeing a plethora of stories that were for honeys or by honey or about honeys, I should say. And so it kind of became my mission to tell the stories that me and my friends want to see that reflect me and my friends' lives. So that's where that came from. And I think there's this idea that, after you get a certain age, that you kind of lose your zest for life, whether that is romantically, sexually, sensually, all the things. And one of the sort of cornerstones of storytelling in Honey Child is desire. And we define that word very broadly, but also in terms of love and sex and all those things.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that too when it comes to like the target audience? Because I think what ultimately happens is it becomes easier to interface with Honey Child because you know, all right, if this type of book is coming out into even a pipeline or you all are like the people to go to, right? Like so talk to us a little bit about just like that target finding because I think a lot of times when we're building something, we try to cast this wide net and say, this is going to be for this person. But you've done a really great job of centering your stories and conversations around a specific target audience.
Yeah, I mean, I have a marketing degree. So that is like one of the first things that you learn is target audience in marketing. You cannot appeal to everyone because then you're really talking to nobody. And you want to start somewhere. And what's interesting about Black people in particular, when you start with Black people, because they are tastemakers,
Yep.
you get them talking and it'll expand. And honeys are the tastemakers because when I think about honeys, I think about Beyonce to Kamala. So they are the tastemakers. They are the influential entities within our community, within our country, within our world. So you target them and get them talking in their households, in their families, in their communities, and you expand out that way. And I also made sure when I was sort of developing the aim of it was this buy for about. So the buy is anything that a honey might do or any story a honey might tell. So if we think about Forever, which is by one of the GOAT honeys, Marbach Akil, you have a honey who did a reimagining of a Judy Blume classic, right? Anything for honeys, anything honeys might be interested in. The Clipse album is something honeys are interested in, right? And then anything about honeys, that's more explicitly something that is starring a honey, you know? So that leaves us wide open for the types of stories that we can tell while also being super targeted about our core. And even with this core, in addition to influence, I'm thinking about financial um the fact that they just have discretionary income, you know, they are able to buy products and services and be, you know, valuable to brands. So all of that came into consideration. And then when I kind of made the announcement to Hollywood that this is what I was doing, more projects actually have come my way than ever before because people know what I do, and they bring me projects accordingly.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot. It always becomes easier to interface when you know exactly who you're speaking to. Last thing on Come Close, I know it's on Kindle Unlimited, right? And is there, and then it's also in paperback or,
Yes.
okay,
Yes, it's
perfect.
on paperback, so you can buy it on Amazon as well as other several online retailers.
Perfect. Yeah, I want to shift a little bit into filmmaking. You got into the your first writing room at 39. Can you talk about that experience and like what the creative sparring like is in a situation in like a writer's room?
Yeah, I mean, I got into the Queen Sugar Writers Room. I turned 39 in that room, and it was under the tutelage of my mentor and friend, Dr. Anthony Sparks, was the showrunner at the time. Ava DuVernay was the creator of that show, and Anthony really created a space where I could bring my full self into the room. I had never had a professional experience like that in my life, where usually you have to hide parts of yourself, but I was able to bring in Baltimore, Jersey, 39, you know, hip hop, all the things into the room. And also because our leads were around my age, I had a lot of value to bring to the table in that way as well. So it was a beautiful, amazing experience. And the writer's room remains one of my favorite places ever. Like the writers, I love the writers room because it is when it's healthy, a bunch of smart people coming together talking about story all day. It is a dream. It is a dream. I love it.
Yeah, and speaking of that, do you have to cast your ego to the side, or how do you kind of think about that? Because are you all is that at one moment someone writes something like, "Hey, we need to change that," and how, like I guess how do you balance ego in a room where it's like a lot of collaboration, or do you because you kind of said healthy writers room, so I'm curious, and when it feels like it's not a healthy environment, how does that feel?
Well, not a healthy is more on the toxic level. As a writer in Hollywood, you get rejected every day. Like I was just on a call where some producers were like a document that I put together. Some parts of it great and some parts are not so great. Like literally they just said that and it just went over me like I'm like, "Okay, what parts aren't great so we can make them better." Like
Yep.
that is the nature of your job. So that part is, but I mean, part of it does get some can get a little um hurtful and painful. But it is kind of you develop a tough skin. But also when I went into my first writer's room, I set the intention to be in service, to put my ego aside because I was so old as a staff writer, to put my ego aside and be in service of my showrunner and the show. And that changed my perspective because anytime I felt a little bit like my ego was uh sneaking up, go back to the showrunner and the show. Like that is what you are in service of. And I keep that intention to this day.
Well, that's good to know. So we have a lot of book readers on our that listen to our podcast, and a lot of them. We always see the big headlines in Hollywood Reporter that this book became, it's now being adopted into films, and we're always excited. So can you talk a little bit about like what actually is the process of that book to screen adaptions, especially because all the work that you all do at Honey Child?
Yeah, I mean it's a slow hell is what it is. They call it development hell for a reason. I think Hollywood has doesn't really have a problem optioning our books. When I say our Black people, they have a problem making those projects. So they'll option books. They'll option books from the sun up to sundown. They will option books. Getting those books made into a television show or a film is another story, and it is Hunger Games. Like that's the only way I can describe it. The process varies from network to network, streamer to streamer, but what you will have in common for the most part is that it will be arduous. It will be very extremely difficult. You might, if you're lucky, get close, and even then, it probably won't get made. So that's kind of the reality of it all. When you think about how many books are really optioned and how many actually turn into something, the gap is wide.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then with you all's production company, are you then like sometimes getting the shopping? Are you like getting shopping like 6 months deals, or how do you kind of think about that? Like when, because I know sometimes you might have an author who might not be the big names, but they have a really strong piece of IP. Are you then kind of doing a shopping deal to see if you can get them to the next level, or how
Yeah.
does that kind of
I
work?
mean,
Okay.
I'm literally taking out a project to buyers in the coming weeks, pitching it to the studio next week, and then we're going to take it out to buyers where we got the shopping agreement with an author who's in Honey, and we then sent it around to other production companies that we were interested in partnering with. We had meetings with them, and then we selected the company we wanted to partner with. It's Uzo's company, Uzo Aduba's company, and then took it to CBS Studios. They liked it. Then they optioned the book because we had a shopping agreement. They optioned the book, and now we're going to take it out to market.
Can we talk a little bit about promoting books, right? Because there on one side, the kind of the difference between promoting your book versus promoting the film, kind of like how do you think about that since you have a background in marketing? Like, do you feel a difference between the way you have to promote your upcoming book versus how you kind of think about movie production or promotion?
No, it's all about attention, trying to get somebody's attention essentially and get them to take an action. So a lot of it is about reaching people where they are, positioning the project in a way that is um there is a need to take an action now. And consistency. I believe, because I used to work in marketing and books as well. And it's interesting because typically, book marketing plans are like 6 weeks. And I remember working in book publishing and be like, well, what if it takes longer? And it's like, well, that's what we got. So my philosophy is a book is new to someone who hasn't heard of it. So at Honey Child, we believe in long tail marketing. So for instance, for our first short film, Tender, I would say we promoted that film for about a year and a half. And then we just put it on YouTube last year. Now it's more than 500,000 views on YouTube. Like that project still people talk about and we still talk about it. We just believe in long tail in that way. And we also believe in finding audiences where they are and using storytelling through the marketing process. How do we create a narrative as part of our marketing campaign that we can continue to tell for the life of the project?
Yeah, we talk about that a little bit. Like when it comes, especially to social media now, it's like we talk about the when you're marketing now, it's you're not marketing to a standing army. You're it's like a moving parade. Like there's always something, there's always a new person that can basically learn about what you have going on,
Yeah.
whether it's on, and then you start to think about all the platforms and then just other places where people might have never heard of you. Like, I think it's just an opportunity that like you never want to just only stop marketing it, or once you have gone through these 6, 7 months that you're kind of talking, or 6 weeks that you're talking about.
And I tell authors and filmmakers the same. You want to move these audiences from your first project to your 10th project. Like don't think of it as marketing just one project. Think of it as marketing your career, your career as a filmmaker, your career as a writer, and you want to take them from project to project to project. So thinking about it from that standpoint, how can I really build audience from day one that's not just project specific, but who really is checking for my work?
Yeah, that's a good point. And to that point, how do you define community, especially the way you kind of talked about the honeys and all that? Like, how do you personally define community, and what do you look for in a community?
I don't know if I have a definition for community. Like now I'm thinking about, I was like, I don't know. And what I look for in it, I think common ground, I think safety, I think um, you know, and when I say safety, the ability to bring your full self into it. I think like minds, I think growth. Those are things that I associate with support, um, with community.
No, that makes sense. And then a little bit on just the side of the audio, I want to talk a little bit about because you've also got into podcasting and what first
Yeah.
kind of got you into podcasting. Do you see an overlap between some of the like how you do podcasts and films and books? Kind of talk about that part of the media landscape.
Yeah, for Honey Child, it's important for us, given that we do work in Hollywood, to also be in other media spaces. One, for audience development and being where our audience is. Two, also just the accessibility of it all. Film and TV, again, it might never reach the light of day. So for us, it's important to be making things and to be able to make those things in conjunction with connecting with our audience. So podcasts were accessible to us. Our first podcast, Child Please, was nominated twice for NAACP Image Award. And it was our way of making something, connecting with audience, brand building, all the things. Also, I just believe in a relationship between Black people and radio. And I think that even though we don't over index in podcast, well, somebody corrected me and said we do actually over index in podcasting in a very specific way, but not like we do on film and television in terms of consumption. I still think that there's a lot of opportunity in podcasts because of the accessibility of it. Now, one thing that we're really interested in getting into is audiobook. So we're looking into making the audiobook version of Come Close. So really excited about that.
Yeah, I think audiobooks, we love them so much over here too, just because
Yeah.
you just never know. Like sometimes you'll be in the gym and you're like, I don't want to listen to music. I want to turn on an audiobook and you get caught in the story. It just is the same, even when you
Yes.
even different from reading.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about creativity. What is you have because you also wrote a book called Comeback Work. It's a workbook. So talk a little bit about what inspired that and some of your writing there.
Yeah, so after books became really hard for me to write, I stopped writing for about 7 years, which was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. Because it was so hard to get back to writing. When I finally did get back to writing, it took a mix of things. It took therapy, it took recalibrating my relationship with the work and with writing, it took discipline, all these things. I was like, let me outline how I did this. And in that outline came this workbook, the Creative Comeback Workbook, which I liken to the artist way in a lot of ways, to help folks who are in a rut. And I think that a lot of creatives get into a rut at some point in their career. I know I was in one. How do you get out of it? How do you start creating again? And this was my blueprint of how I started creating again that I wanted to share.
Yeah, so when it comes to like that kind of, you said that 8 years of not really writing, what were you kind of doing in that time, or were you was there just like no stories that were coming to you, or kind of how do you think about like navigating even that moment? Because I know a lot of us writers sometimes will take some time off, and you think that coming back to it gets easier, and it really sometimes doesn't, like you said.
Yeah, I had made the incorrect calculation that writing was supposed to financially support me. And when I made the small adjustment that it is my responsibility to financially support me, everything kind of opened up in that way that writing didn't have that pressure anymore. So during that time, I actually was running a consultancy. It was essentially a marketing consultancy for social justice projects. I was what we call now impact producer. So some of my clients were PBS, NPR, participant media. And so I was working with a lot of documentaries, helping them to develop these wide scale social impact campaigns. And that also pushed me into like the movie space a little bit more, the Hollywood space, the entertainment space a little bit more. But that's what I was doing. And I was like, I was mad at writing for not supporting me financially.
Yeah, it's like that quote. It's like all that wander aren't lost. It's like sometimes you gotta kind of in that in between stage is like when you kind of build yourself up. You could do all these different things that kind of connect the dots down the line, and
Yeah.
it's really unique how that works.
I feel that way very strongly right now that everything I've had a million careers, it seems like that, but they all came back to storytelling. And I feel very much now that nothing was in vain, that my tool set, it's funny, a friend of mine calls me a Swiss Army knife, has been what has helped me to get where I have gotten in my career, for sure. The marketing background, the working with developing social impact campaigns, the working at a magazine, the being a journalist, freelancing, like all those things, teaching on the college level as an adjunct, all those things have helped me to soar.
Yep. Yeah, to that point, how do you kind of balance all those things and give them their each like their own focus? Because I know there's and when you have a lot of those pots, like I just think of like really creative people, like from Childish Gambino to the Issa Rae. There's a ton of those down the line that are good at so many things. So like you yourself, how do you kind of each space, each craft give it its space that it needs?
Yeah, I did have to. It's funny because when I came out here, I had a meeting with Lisa Cortez. Shout out to Lisa Cortez, who was an amazing producer who came from music and got into film producing. Has done amazing documentaries and work. And I had a conversation with her because I was like, I'm considering being either a creative producer or a writer. Now, mind you, I had already been a writer, but I was scared to be writer again. And she was like, you really should pick a lane because there are two different trajectories. And I really didn't want to hear it at the time because I am a Jill of all trades. But I do think there comes a point in your career where you need to focus on one thing. And this is wild for me to say this because I have done a million things. But I really believe that it helps tremendously to focus on one thing and get your footing there and then add things on. So when she told me that and I finally received it, I focused on writing. I went all in on writing. And then once I did that, I was able to add directing. And as a writer, as you move up, you add producing. And then I added, CEO of a media company. Like I added those things, but my foundation is writing. That's a thing that is my core. That's what I say I am first and foremost. And it really changed the game when I went all in on writing.
No, I love to hear that. And I think for a lot of creatives too, like they are talented in a lot of different ways, but they don't want to say it doesn't, they want to feel like they're just doing project after project and people like kind of say, oh, why? Oh, you're onto this now. You're doing that now. Like, I think it's interesting, like that struggle that creatives sometimes have, like they kind of have, as artists, have to drown out all the noise and
Yeah,
get back to themselves.
like who cares? Like I think one, they're not putting money in your pocket. Two, they're not your audience. Your audience is like, yes. You know what I mean? Like give me more stories, give me more because I love the work that you're doing. And I think that a lot of times we have to focus on the things that are important and especially if you're running the business, the things that are important are sales and audience, right? So if you're getting those things, um, I think I would not pay attention to the noise. But if you're not, you may have to buckle down and focus a little bit and then add on.
Yeah, that's always that balance you're talking about. But what do you say to people who feel like they've kind of missed their shot creatively, or they feel like it's too late and they should just maybe go into a different career? Like, what would you kind of talk to them about there?
I don't believe it's ever too late. I think that age is a superpower. I think it's all about perspective and making the I think it's all about perspective. Um, and when I decided that I was going to use my age, my experience, my wisdom to help me out in Hollywood, it it aided me in ways that I can't even express, you know? And also embracing my age in a place that's very ageist has actually worked for my benefit. Um, and I think a lot of times it's too late is just fear manifested. So my question would be, what are you scared of?
Yep.
Like, get to the root of the fear. It's always fear. It's always fear. And getting to the root of the fear helps you to break through it.
Yeah. How have you been able to age gracefully in that sense? Like especially from creatively and thought process. Like I think a lot of times people kind of struggle in their 20s, 30s trying to figure things out. So how are you able to kind of age gracefully? Stay focused on these things, so many different things that you've kind of have built over time.
Money. Yeah, I'll be very quite honest. I was broke in my 20s and 30s. And when I buckled down and got focused, but also I would say therapy has helped me tremendously. And everything kind of came out of therapy, like the money and all that came out of therapy because I really understood key things. And one of the things that I say that all the time is one of the things that I understood was, people like ask me all the time, how did you break through? How did you get your foot in the door? And therapy helped me to realize that there is no door. I am the door. And so I'm always the one who I believe I'm always the one in control of generating opportunities for myself. And so that gives me a lot of freedom. That gives me a lot of control. I rarely feel out of control. Even when the industry is looking the way that the industry is doing, I rarely feel out of control because I feel like one, I have a source that's bigger than me. And then two, I'm able to always generate opportunity. So that helps with the aging gracefully, the therapy. And then also just age in general helps you to just have a different perspective. You care less about what people think. You have experience to back up to know that you're going to be okay no matter what because you've been through the fire several times and you came out on the other side. So that clarity of, you know what? I've seen this before, or even if I haven't seen it before, I've been through something similar and I know I'm going to be okay. All that helps to uh, decrease stress, um, decrease uncertainty, and all those things I think age you.
Yeah, I agree. That's honestly great. Well said. I also want to talk a little bit about like independence because I think a lot of things that you've done has been building this media production company and everything inside all from an independent lens. What made you kind of craft that and go out on your own? And what is some of your advice there when it comes to just owning your own? Because you were talking even about Sinners and kind of the things that Ryan Coogler did with that project as well.
Yeah, well, one, I don't really love storytelling by committee, which is what, being a TV writer and a screenwriter is. It's not, I love collaboration and I love qualified feedback. Storytelling by committee, not so much. Two, I like to make stuff and make sure it reaches my audience. I don't have this gift so that my scripts languish on somebody's unqualified desk. I just don't. And then third, there's the ownership. It gives you a certain amount of freedom to be able to, um, for the lack of a better term, exploit your IP in the ways that you want to. There's nothing more painful than making something, selling all the rights to it, and you not being able to do anything with it when they themselves are not doing anything with it. It's a very painful thing. So you learn from that, and ownership in that way is very important to me. So, and also to help me just sustain in Hollywood, I have to make things independently. One, to make sure that my voice is not getting watered down, that I'm able to make things without interference. And then two, to keep my relationship with my audience. And then three, just a validation of seeing something made is important, I think, for creatives.
Yeah, I actually have a question on that too, because I think as Hollywood kind of shifts a little bit as well, you see how big things like streaming has become and YouTube and all these things. Do you think about how that is kind of playing into like storytelling as well and what people might want to see on a different medium, even if it's something like a YouTube and what movies or stories can be told on platforms like that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, one of, Honey Child is YouTube is a big priority for us. I mean, they already have surpassed Netflix in hours watched on TVs. So they are the now. It's not even about the future. YouTube is the now. Streaming is important, incredibly important. The creator economy is only getting bigger. I think that Hollywood is not embracing it as quickly and as honestly as they should be. So I hope that creatives within Hollywood are.
Yep. I want to, as we kind of wrap up, I do want to ask, what are some creative risks you're excited to take on, whether it's on the page, behind the camera, or even on the microphone?
I mean, writing Come Close was a creative risk. It's really important to me to get my first feature off the ground, my directorial debut. So that's something that I'm really excited about and that we're pouring a lot of energy into at Honey Child to get that moving. And then taking on, I moved into the role of showrunner. So taking that role on in for different projects is exciting to me.
Perfect. Yeah, we always have to ask this question when it comes to reading. What's the last book you read? What are you reading now? And what do you plan to read next?
I'm reading my homegirl's book, Christine Pride. I want to make sure I don't get the title wrong. All the Men I've Loved Again. So Christine Pride, we go way back from our publishing days. And it's funny, I've just like read, I have to send this to her. I came across this because I used to have a blog about books. And I think it might have been like 2007 or something. She and I were doing like this cocktails for black editors and publishing professionals in New York. So we go way back. We call ourselves play cousins because we have the same last name. And she is an editor turned author. This is her second book, but this is her first novel, All the Men I Loved Again. And the voice is so fun, so fresh. I'm just so proud of her. And it's just fun. It's fun and it's charming. That's a word I've been using a lot lately. It's charming. So I'm super excited about for Christine.
Perfect. Sounds good. The way we end this podcast, you can answer it however you want. But what should be in a writer's toolkit? And also, I want to ask, what should be in a, as I guess when it comes to what should be, I should say, what should be in a 40 plus Black women's toolkit? We'll make it specific to you as well.
Desire. Desire and the willingness to be open to your desires, the willingness to go after them should be in that. I think in a storyteller's toolkit, a writer's toolkit should be therapy.
Perfect.
I always say, like, in order to translate emotions onto screen, how can you translate emotions onto screen that you actually can't sit with in your own life? So therapy is should be in every writer's toolkit or therapeutic practice.
Yes, love to hear it. Thank you so much, Felicia, for your time. Please let us know anything that's coming up in your world. We'll make sure to obviously put your book as well. But yeah, let us know anywhere we can support or where to at least find you on the internet.
Yeah, you can find me at Felicia Pride on all major platforms, and you can find Honey Child at It's Honey Child on all major platforms.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. Truly appreciate it and just your wisdom and everything.
Thank you, Kyle.